Welcome back to our special segment. As we discussed earlier, the global oil shortage is affecting many industries around the world, disrupting supply chains in ways we haven't seen in decades. And to make matters worse, an oil tanker owned by the AMCE Corporation sustained heavy damage, spilling massive amounts of oil into the ocean, further contributing to the supply chain chaos. Now, we're joined by Travis, a supply chain expert who will help us understand the full scope of the crisis and offer potential solutions. Travis, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
To start, can you walk us through the current state of the oil shortage? How bad is it really, and why is it so important?
We're in a critical situation right now. The oil shortage is primarily caused by several factors: geopolitical instability, reduced production capacity in key oil-producing regions, and growing demand for energy worldwide. But oil isn't just for transportation. It's vital for nearly every sector, from manufacturing to agriculture, chemicals, and even pharmaceuticals. Oil is deeply embedded in global supply chains. When its availability becomes limited or prices spikes, the effect ripples through the entire economy. Businesses and consumers alike feel the pinch in the form of higher costs, longer lead times, and shortages of goods.
And it's not just about getting the oil, right? The whole supply chain, everything from getting the oil to where it is needed and how it's processed and delivered has been disrupted. Can you elaborate on that?
Exactly. It's not just the raw material. The logistics of transporting oil is also a massive challenge. Shipping routes are congested and many ports are facing delays due to labor shortages, poor infrastructure, and regulatory changes. There's also the issue of refined oil products. Refineries are running at reduced capacities because of the scarcity of crude oil and labor disruptions, which means fewer fuel products are being produced. On top of that, the cost of transportation for goods, whether by road, rail, or air, has skyrocketed due to the rising fuel prices, making the whole system less efficient. It's like a chain of dominoes. Each disruption causes the next one, creating this massive bottleneck effect.
And in terms of supply chain itself, what can businesses do to better manage the situation?
Businesses need to be far more agile. The just-in-time inventory model that many companies rely on simply doesn't work well in a crisis like this. Companies need to move toward more resilient supply chain models that can adapt to fluctuations in oil prices and availability. This could mean building up more inventory reserves, diversifying suppliers, and even reshoring some production to reduce dependence on overseas suppliers. It's about risk management. The supply chain needs to be flexible, and businesses need to have contingency plans in place for when disruptions occur.
That's a great point. So you're advocating for a multifaceted approach: government support, corporate responsibility, and individual action. But what about the oil-producing nations themselves? What role do they play in resolving this issue?
Oil-producing nations are, of course, at the heart of this issue. They have the power to increase production, but many are already running at capacity or are hesitant to do so due to environmental concerns or geopolitical tensions. However, there needs to be more international cooperation to ensure that the oil market remains stable. That includes supporting countries that are transitioning away from oil dependence, like those in the Middle East who have recognized the need to diversify their economies. But we also need to address the fact that oil will still play a role in the global economy for some time. So it's about managing that transition without causing further disruptions.
In your opinion, are we looking at a long-term crisis here, or do you think that things will stabilize soon?
The short-term crisis is definitely going to last a while, probably through the next year or so. As global economy adjusts, the short-term crisis is definitely going to last a while, probably through the next year or two as the global economy adjusts. But longer term, I'm cautiously optimistic. If we start taking these steps toward diversification now, by the time the next oil crisis hits, we'll be in a much better position to absorb the impact. The key is that this has to be a global effort. No single nation or company can solve this alone.
Okay, so in conclusion, while the situation is critical, there is a path forward if the right actions are taken now. Thank you so much for your insight. Travis, it's clear that the oil shortage is just one part of a much larger issue. and solving it will require a multi-pronged approach.
Thank you for having me. I hope this conversation around oil shortages leads to meaningful action on energy security and sustainability.
Now, some of you may remember from the earlier program, the AMCE Corporation recently had a devastating ship failure off the coast of Florida earlier this week. Joining us is Mr. Caleb from the oil division of the AMCE Corporation. Caleb, thank you for joining us.
Well, it's a great pleasure. Thank you.
Let's start with the latest oil incident off the eastern coast of Florida. There's a major issue involving an oil tanker that we're hearing about. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, the one the front fell off?
Yeah.
That's not very typical. I like to make that point.
Well, how is it untypical?
Well, there are a lot of these ships going around the world all the time, and very seldom does anything like this happen. I just don't want people thinking that tankers aren't safe.
Was this tanker safe?
Well, I was thinking more about the other ones.
The ones that are safe.
Yeah, the ones the front doesn't fall off.
Well, if it wasn't safe, why did it have 80,000 tons of oil on it?
Well, I'm not saying it wasn't safe, it's just, perhaps it's not quite as safe as some of the other ones.
Why?
Well, some of them are built so that the front doesn't fall off at all.
Wasn't this built so the front wouldn't fall off?
Well, obviously not.
How do you know?
Well, because the front fell off and 20,000 tons of crude oil spilled into the sea caught fire. It's a bit of a giveaway. I would just like to make the point that that is not normal.
Well, what sort of standards are these oil tankers built to?
Oh, very rigorous maritime engineering standards.
What sort of things?
Well, the front's not supposed to fall off for starts.
And what other things?
Well, there are regulations governing the materials they can be made out of.
What materials?
Well, cardboard's out.
And?
No cardboard derivatives. No paper. No string. No sellotape. Nope, rubber's out. They've got to have a steering wheel. There's a minimum crew requirement.
What is the minimum crew?
Oh, one, I guess.
So the allegations that they are just designed to carry as much oil as possible and to hell with the consequences, I mean, that's ludicrous.
Ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. These are very, very strong vessels.
So what happened in this case?
Well, the front fell off in this case, but that's very unusual.
But Caleb, why did the front bit fall off?
Well, a wave hit it.
A wave hit it? Is that unusual?
Oh yeah, at sea? Chance in a million.
So what do you do to protect the environment in a case like this?
Well, the ship was towed outside of the environment.
Into another environment?
No. It's been towed beyond the environment. It's not in the environment.
Yeah, but from one environment to another. Well, there must be something out there.
There's nothing out there. All there is sea and birds
And anything else?
and 20,000 tons of crude oil and a fire and the part of the ship that the front fell off. But there's nothing else out there. It's completely void.
All right, we're out of time. Thank you, Caleb, for joining us. And thank you to the viewers at home for joining us tonight. As we've learned, the global oil shortage is a complex issue with far-reaching consequences, but there are solutions. It's up to governments, businesses, and consumers to act now in order to secure a stable and sustainable future.